Starting with Lisa Donovan, please, from Maker Studios. Christian Wegner from ProSieben, please. A member of the executive board, please come on stage. Lutz Schüler, CEO of Unity Media. And Samir Arora, CEO of Glam Network. So just a little bit of background before we start to kind of set the stage. Looking back 5 years, or even 3 years, there's no question that the world changed. The world of content distribution completely changed. Only the free TV market went into a complete reorganization, where the ratings of most of the free-to-air channels went dramatically down. That's a big shift. Now, time shifting as well became a big factor that affected the advertising industry in a pretty major way. While this happens, you had all these new online platforms that came into the market that changed economic models, changed distribution models. Meanwhile, you have the consumer that have now new devices, tablets, smartphones, that are able to watch what they want, when they want. So many things that really happen around us that are hard to imagine the world today without tablets, but looking back, this only really happened 3 years ago when this came into our life. But maybe one of the more interesting developments and changes is what happened in the television world. Because while everyone has been thinking what will happen when television will come to the internet, the more interesting question is what happens when internet will come into the television. And being at CES only a couple of weeks ago, what is pretty obvious is that the big shift, the big development is less on the mobile side and more on the television side. Because the sales of television sets, the smart TV, the HD, the 4K, the 8K, is what's really driving people's excitement these days. And that's going to be a big change, where today already 25% of television sets in US homes are all internet enabled. That's a big thing. And many people believe that in the coming future, television will come back to the center of gravity of the tech world. And all devices will point towards a television set, which will become the main epicenter of the industry. Now, while this happens, some things did not change. Linear television is actually up. While free-to-air television is down, linear television is up. And content is still a key driver. The major broadcasters still produce and control to a large degree the premium content that drives a lot of the viewership. Advertisers still go towards premium content when they want to reach the mass audience. Online video advertising is still small compared to television advertising. Online subscription is still small compared to paid television. But there's no question that change is coming, and that the industry is pregnant with change, except that it will take a little bit more than 9 months to happen. Up until now, the two key dynamics that affected this development were, first, penetration of broadband, and the second is resistance to change by the incumbents that try to protect the world. But it's going to happen. And what we're going to try and do today is address some of the questions, some of the opposite kind of vectors that are working on the industry, to understand from our experts how they see the world and where we're heading. But before we start, I'd like to give each person the opportunity to talk a little bit about the business and give you some background on how they see the world from their perspective. Starting with Samir, a little bit about Glam, please.
Thanks so much. Welcome, everyone. I guess most of the people here knew how to deal with the snow, because the rest are not here yet. I'm really glad to be back to DLD. I run a company called Glam Media. Glam started about 9 years ago as a lifestyle media company, first only for women and style. Very different from most Silicon Valley technology media companies. Most of us in early days started at Apple, and the idea was always be broad as a platform. Glam went the opposite way. It was very focused, very premium, and stayed in one vertical for almost about 5 years. Fast forward to today, Glam's #1 lifestyle media company in the US, We reach about 110 million users a month in the US, about 500 million globally every month. And we're now in 7 verticals, so it's starting to look more and more like a television network model, in which we have 3 different tiers, either content created by external sources, content that we own, and more recently, just starting with the acquisition of Ning with Mark Andreessen last year, joined our board, social as well. So our focus is premium only, both in curated content and premium brands. We reach about 1,800 brands today, and it's been a fascinating ride for the last 9 years. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, please.
Hello. My name is Lisa Donovan, and I am a co-founder of a company called Maker Studios. And it was started 3.5 years ago, in 2009. Before that, I was a content creator on YouTube, and Maker Studios was born out of our experience creating content on the YouTube platform and having made our life about creating content there. We saw an opportunity to work with other content creators and create sort of a studio and network model, and that is what Maker is. It's a media company that has a studio component as well as a network component. And we partner with content creators internationally, and we help them either by doing production for them, or we help drive audience to them, marketing, different social media. And we are very focused now on building our vertical strategy, because we have about 2.5 billion monthly views at this point, and we've partnered with over 10,000 channels. So we're very focused now on building out our vertical strategy and working on more premium content now that we have the scale, and to help monetize for our partners. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, my name is Lutz Schüler. I run one of the 2 cable providers in Germany. So we do 2 billion turnover a year, 1 billion profit. So it's an interesting business as well. We have only 7 million customers, no 500 million, but we are really growing every year, and we have the best infrastructure for television and for broadband in Germany. We have, of course, we are the aggregator for television, and I'm a strong believer that linear television, free-to-air, will stay for a long time. And then we have really the big opportunity with all kind of over-the-top play, internet play, and we are excited about it. The company is owned by Liberty Global, and the chairman is, you might know him, it's John Malone.
Great. Christian.
Good morning, my name is Christian Wegner. I'm working for ProSiebenSat.1. ProSiebenSat.1 is in its core the leading free-to-air broadcaster in Germany. We have roughly 30% market share on the audience market and 40% of advertising share. That equals to a revenue of 1.5 billion for advertising in Germany, and the margin is not as high as yours, but with 30%, it's an attractive business. But since we learned in the past that TV is a very good driver for digital businesses, we started early to aggressively diversify into digital. And in digital, we have 2 main business segments where I'm responsible of. One is digital entertainment. So we started to, in the end, extend our core competence from TV into online video, where we run the leading VOD portal in Germany called Maxdome, and small but still legal competitor to YouTube for online video advertising financed. We entered the online games market, which is very close to our core business, the blockbuster business with very, very premium games that we market across Europe. It's a European business already. It's 75% of the revenue of online games is already international. We own a music label called Starwatch, which promotes roughly 60% of all top 20 charts in 2012. The second leg, which we call 7 Ventures, it's an investor into the online community where we invest idle inventory, used to have a problem, idle inventory into e-commerce startups and help them to become category leader. That's roughly the world of ProSieben, and I'm also very excited about opportunities we see to combine the strong linear TV, linear marketing with the online world, and looking forward to this panel.
Great. So there you have it. We have one of the world's largest advertising networks in Glam Media. We have the world's largest partner of YouTube, the largest multi-channel network. This is Maker Studios, and for disclosure purposes, I'm an investor and chairman of the company, but I promise to be impartial today. The largest cable platform in the largest media market in Europe, and one of the two largest broadcasters in Germany. So we have by far, 4 experts in each of their respective domains. And what we're going to do today, we're going to, rather than ask one question and have everyone respond, we're going to focus on certain vectors or opposite forces that affect the industry, and ask 2 people of the panel to respond to each of them, and create a bit of a debate. We will try not to have any blood on the walls, but we may have opposing views and see how people see the world from their perspective. So starting with a question for Unity Media and Lisa for Maker. The topic really is looking at the pay TV market in the US versus, or in the worldwide rather, versus over-the-top services. In the US, by 2016, broadband penetration in the homes will equal the level of pay TV penetration. And we look at the threat by all the OTT services that look to cut the cords, all these online services that that pose threats for the cable industry. And while the cable industry is trying to come up with services like TV everywhere and the likes, we're seeing what happened to AOL in the 90s all over again when internet became open. And you could no longer have closed gardens that serve the customer. So the question is, how big of a threat is the third wave of content and over-the-top television to the pay TV industry?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can talk about pay TV. I can more talk about our business, the cable business. And so maybe 2 sentences. Before I joined the cable industry, I was in the mobile industry. And we have had the same dream, being an aggregator for content and getting away from the dumb pipe business. I think we lost that game in the mobile industry, right? So the mobile industry now is maybe a smart pipe, but nothing more. So the first thing when I got my new job in cable was, is that just a way for a couple of years and I will end up being again a dumb pipe, or is there an opportunity for doing more? And my strong belief is that we as a cable company, we have a strong opportunity to stay in the aggregator role. And that means, pay TV is one thing, and in Germany, the market is very much behind. So the free-to-air market is very strong. So the pay TV market was very small, but now everybody has bought a huge television, an HD television, and now everybody thinks about how to use it. So they pay for HD, yeah, so it's good business for us, right? It's 4 or 5 euros. And every second customer who pays for HD is going to get a pay TV package from us. Yeah. And OTT is still very small. Yeah. So therefore, I think it's not a threat. I think it's complementary. And at the end, the customer wants to use everything. So therefore, to say it's one or the other, I would say it's both.
Yeah, I agree. I think it shouldn't be seen necessarily as a threat, but an opportunity. It is a threat in that it's coming and they have to deal with it, but I think there's a way to turn it into an opportunity. Kind of like HBO Go. I feel like they've been really smart, because I was going to cancel my cable and I decided to keep it because I can watch everything online. So I'm watching on my computer because of the OTT, and so I think that adapting to it and taking advantage of it and getting ahead of it. And I think online for us it's hard because people aren't used to paying for subscriptions. So we have to merge as well and change our model and figure out how to make that work, just like I think cable and pay has to figure out how to adapt to OTT.
I think the question is, when people look to cut the cord, or YouTube is thinking about becoming the largest cable network in the world, with a global footprint, is it not a threat to the cable industry?
No, I don't think so, because I think our customers, they want to see everything. So they want to see all channels. And for instance, his content will be never available open in the internet, because then his business model is in danger. And that means we have to have corporations, and we have to get money for content. So and that is something that we are working very closely together on it. Yeah. So I think the customer wants to have linear television, the customer wants to have pay TV, and the customer wants to have internet access. And I also think that when you talk about smart TVs in these days, I mean, coming from the mobile industry, I think the smart TVs today are not very smart. They are like mobile or smartphones in the mobile industry in the early days. So you have had to tell your smartphone, now I go with you in the internet. Now I go with you and make text message. Now I make a phone call. And look at when the new iPhone was introduced and the Android operating system, that was the big change. And I think the same thing will happen on the big screen in the living room, and we haven't seen that. And therefore, we in Liberty, we are working on that. So it's a new product called Horizon, and it has apps on it. And then the customer is not forced to think about technology. The customer thinks about what to use. So if I'm interested in Formula One, then I'm getting on Formula One, and I get a linear television available, I get a YouTube, what is Hamilton saying, I get a game, I get chats, and I think that is the future.
Maybe just to add on this second, if you just compare the numbers, free TV in Germany is roughly 200 minutes. Online usage on YouTube is roughly 10 minutes. And this will grow maybe to 20. So what you see on these numbers, it's simply complementary. So I think you will have always the linear world, in particular in Germany, for all these free TV signals. But in addition, you will have video on demand usage. And video on demand usage is either YouTube, small clips, new art types of content, or time-shifted TV premium content. So I think it's more complementary to each other, and the smart TV, which are internet-enabled TVs, will bring both to the TV screen. So I think there's place for both.
We're going to talk about that in a second. Okay, so shifting gears for a second, let's talk about advertising. So a question, for thinking from ProSieben perspective and from Glam's perspective, the Glam has took the targeted advertising to the nth degree and really built a massive business on the back of it, whereby ProSieben's core business is classic broadcast national advertising. Now, while free-to-air television rating is down, you still see that the advertisers flock to the major broadcasters when they want to reach the mass audiences. However, what is obvious is that technology is changing the game. Technology will enable to offer 100% accurate rating, unlimited capacity, optimization of online advertising, targeting users specifically, and personalize their experience, as well as time shifting. So this is all technology. But the question is, where is this heading? And is the old broadcasting model broken of national mass advertising in the world of the new technology? Let's start with Samir, really, from your perspective, how you built your business and how you see the impact on free-to-air television.
It's a really good question, because when Glam started, its company's name was not Glam. It was called Project Y, and it was all brands and broadcast model. In the first 18 months decided, when we realized what was happening at the consumer usage level, I think that's a trait I definitely learned at Apple. You have to really focus on what the consumers are doing right now, not what you want them to do, what you think they're doing. And what we realized was that consumers at that time, this is 2002 and 2003, were gravitating on the internet somewhere between a print media model and a TV model. It wasn't clear which of those two the internet would follow. And by that I mean, the print magazine model is low reach in terms of compared to broadcast, but extremely high targeted and packaged media. So if you pick up a Vogue versus an Elle, its audience is almost the same in total numbers in the US, but actually there's a big difference. And as a consumer, before you pick up the magazine, the combination you're going to get. So that's a perfect targeted medium in terms of packaging. And when someone like a Vogue inserts a big ad by Walmart in it, things start to go wrong, right? So that's a very good example. So the first few years, Glam was only targeted media. And to a point where no one even realized that we were a technology company. What we've learned from that is, because we were so focused on the target, we actually know an enormous amount, in a very good way, about the consumer. So if we continue that trend, where we are now is, for the 500 million consumers a month, we are cross-platform, but the goal remains extreme targeting. So what that means is, if you're on a computer or a laptop, whether you are at home or at work, whether you're now on an iPhone or an Android or a tablet or an iPad, and as soon as someone gives me access to digital TV, we are one of the few companies that have built the entire technology infrastructure to target the consumer very narrowly, regardless of device or medium. That's very unusual, right? So what that does is, as an advertiser, when they come in, till about 18 months ago, almost 100% of our brand advertisers came from print. All over the world. We're in multiple countries. 18 months ago, I started to see a very interesting trend, which is when the aggregate of our targeted verticals, so that example would be Scripps Food Network plus Scripps Home Do-It-Yourself, right? They're very different networks. You have different advertisers, but they also share advertisers, endemic versus the others. So what we started to realize was, when the sum of our verticals started to become large, now we were beginning to attract broadcast advertisers. So the last 18 months, almost all our advertisers are television advertisers that are seeking the broadcast level of reach. I'm talking about CPG, very large brands, and that switch happened very quickly. So my learning in this is, if in the internet medium, which is a smart medium, right? You should not see an ad for a car if you've just bought a car. It's actually complete waste, because all it will do is invalidate you. This is actually a very simple problem to solve. Once you start solving that problem across all screens other than cable TV, then when you bring that forward, the consumer will start getting used to that level of targeting. I think that's going to be a very, very interesting world, because you'll go from print, where people love advertising, to sometimes TV, where you get annoyed, or internet, where you get very annoyed, or mobile. You can solve that problem and make advertising something people want. And I think the answer is using technology to do targeting carefully, packaging carefully, programming carefully, but then start to build it towards a broadcast model. So I don't think broadcast goes away.
I agree. No, before I answer your question, I think more important than mass versus targeting is, for me, premium, or video versus non-video. And we as a broadcaster, obviously, but also the market, if you ask the agencies or the big marketeers, they all believe that video is the best way for them to brand their product. And it's not only branding, it's also direct sales. So that's why I'm a strong believer of video advertising. And looking at video advertising, it's simply linear TV. It's broadcasting model. If you compare the markets, we have video advertising in Germany, 3.5 billion TV advertising, 100 million in online. So just to compare the size, you see that linear TV, linear video advertising will remain here for a long time. We have 50 million TV users that you can reach each day in Germany. So I think TV and video advertising is the only medium where you can fast build reach awareness, you can give trust to your product, you can explain your product. So I think linear TV will stay there. And I also believe in the future we have targeting on TV. If you think of smart TVs, internet-enabled TVs, and we also tried with Unity to have regional advertising, to really allow advertisers to advertise in different countries, or then even towns, or maybe later on TV sets. So I think also TV, in a small segment, will become more targeted. So in the end, you will see a strong mass medium with TV, and this will be complemented to really get target groups, small target groups, or to get more contacts, more net contacts with very good managed targeting advertising. So I see a strong world for both, led by linear TV and search, unfortunately, and then supported by targeting, display, and video advertising on all screens.
I share this view. I agree. I think linear television or broadcast television is not going away, but what matters is how you adapt and how you react and how you leverage your position. Being a big incumbent today, as technology moves. But this did not happen in the music industry, where they missed the boat twice, first to MTV, then to iTunes. And it looks like the television operators are smarter than that and are looking to protect their position. And I would say the same, by the way, in the cable industry, which adapted to technological changes and became a gateway and harnessing OTT rather than seeing it as a threat. So then looking at ProSieben and Unity, the two kings of Germany, and I guess the question is really who's going to be King Kong of Germany. And you work together in many ways, but there's the kind of old question of what is the better formula? National broadcast, advertising-driven television versus the classic model of cable platform that are largely driven by subscription. So if I'm an investor today looking to take a long-term bet, given all the technological changes in the industry, who should we back? Broadcast television or cable?
I think you should diversify, 50-50.
You're hedging your
I really think
already,
so. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, that question is very old, yeah. And when 10 years ago, when AOL was acquiring Time Warner, I spent my first money on it, 60,000 Deutschmark, so 30,000 euros. I mean, I lost it entirely, right? So I think when you look at ProSieben Sat.1, it's a completely different company than ours. So it's different people, different company. And I don't know if somebody is able to manage to get it into one company. So I think we need each other. And so without the content, we couldn't offer anything to our customers. But also he couldn't offer anything without our cable. So that means we really try to we are on the way establishing a strategic partnership. We are piloting things like regional advertising. We are selling Maxdome. We do a lot of stuff together. And of course, we are respecting each other's business models. So we will not enter in the advertising world. And I think you will not enter into the infrastructure world. So therefore, I think spend 50-50 and you will get a rich man.
I would go for 60-40. Because in the end, content is king. No, but I agree to Lutz. In the end, compared to maybe cars and streets, you need great cars, which is content, or broadcasters selecting good people, good pieces to get a car, and you need a smart network of streets and roads to bring these cars around. So I think it goes hand in hand. And the cables are in Germany the only network from the quality of service level that is able to transport all this linear TV at the quality we want. It's HD now, maybe it's getting 3D and whatsoever. So I think it's really a very good complement in our core business. We do free TV advertising funded. They do the transport. Where we obviously compete in a way is in all these new on-demand services, because Unity want to avoid to get, as you mentioned before, to be a dumb pipe. So you start to enter the VOD, and we do the same with our products. But as you said, I think the market is big enough to really together enhance the customer experience and have a win-win. Better product, and both parties earn something of it. So I think it's not really a competition, it's more a complement and then a smart exploitation of new opportunities to really where we can utilize our local knowledge and local network versus these global friends that also want to enter the German market.
Short comment 60, on that.
So 60% on Unity you mean, and 40% on...
No,
okay.
60 for ProSieben, and maybe in the summer you will have the opportunity to get some nice shares. So the stock is available, so 60-40 is a good, good quote.
Good. Samir, you wanted to
it's great to hear this. The first shot has been fired in the US, as we all know. Comcast owns NBC, so you could buy those shares. And I think what's happening there is slightly different, as we all know. There's the stack, as we call it. There are players that are moving in the stack. So, Comcast going into buying content, or Google, which is a content enabler, suddenly going into cable. So I think there are some movers that are very large that can change the game. But they are from a DNA perspective, it's two completely different businesses.
And just for the audience, USA is totally different. Because if you talk about Comcast, there are $100 packages for their pay TV. And Germany is totally different. You have the nice public that gets 16 euros for each household.
More now.
Or more. Okay, they've increased the price. It's easy to increase price if you have the power to do it. So the public gets 15, then the cable gets 15, and that's it. That's 30. And you can't call it pay TV. It's simply a fee to get access to free-to-air broadcasters like we have. And then the only pay TV is Sky, and they are only strong because they own soccer. So in the end, it's a free-to-air market with an infrastructure fee in Germany compared to the cable market. And that's why cord cutting is more important for the US, because there you save 80 euros. And it's not important for Germany because we have to pay these fees in any case.
Got it.
That's why it's a total different game in Germany, and it's often mixed up if you talk in the US world, because it's a totally different picture here.
Okay, so talking about content and what matters more, and looking at looking at the Glam model versus Maker, what's interesting is that Glam started off by bringing connecting brands with professional digital content providers. So the brand advertisers, rather, with professional content providers, where just recently in December, Glam decided to move into user-generated content by acquiring Ning, which brought in social media with an ecosystem of 75,000 websites, right, or something like that, into your platform. So you moved from professional content to user-generated content. While looking at Maker Studios has more than 10,000 channels on YouTube, and is by far the largest platform for user-generated content in the world. Yet, Maker is now also moving the opposite direction towards working with professional artists. The most recent one is probably, I guess, is Snoop Dogg, or Snoop Lion, as we call him. So the question is, in the world of online distribution, where the barriers to entry are very low, and there's room for everyone, and anyone can become a broadcaster, anyone can become an artist, yet quality content still matters, which is the winning formula? The user-generated content or professional content?
Well, I think you have to have both for it to be successful. I mean, I feel like you need the scale, and I imagine that was part of why you guys acquired Ning. And we need that as well for us to go to market and really have advertisers putting money against our content. We need to have premium content, because that is very important to the advertisers. I think it's also a question of what everyone considers premium content, because the audience that we deal with on YouTube, I feel like we're making premium content for them, but potentially for advertisers or traditional content creators, it's not. And I hope that advertisers start to see that, and how powerful these content creators are, and how they can, they can drive people to purchase, and I think hopefully that will start to shift as well. But we also, are living today and need to adapt to today. So we're focused on making sure we're making premium content as well, to be sort of the tip of the spear for us to unlock more ad dollars.
It's a really good question, and I think your sequence of Glam is correct. Because from the beginning, we started with the notion that media is about scarcity creation, which you do best by very high quality content with very high quality and appropriate brand advertising. Because you have to get the consumer happy, you have to get the brand advertiser happy, and you have to have the artist creators happy. It's a very difficult discipline. We're a brand new medium, right? So one thing we realized, and I would thank his boss for this, very early in Glam, I was trying to figure out what model is this? This is a question that has intrigued me for a long time, and I heard John say something that just hit it on the head, and I've never looked back. He said, in every medium, what you have to ask is there fragmentation going on because of either the law, which is TV affiliates or cable business, or for other forces of distribution control? And will there be a room for a reaggregator, right? So if you start from that premise, When Glam started, we actually had the problem that even the most professional content online was considered inferior to print. It's true. So people have forgotten this was a decade ago, and we fought very hard for it. What we learned in that was we were not hiring the Anna Wintours. We were hiring just one level below the editor-in-chiefs. That's no longer true. We launched food about a year ago. We hired the Gail Greens and the New York Times food critics, so we've come a long way. But back then, we were slightly lower. And what I heard all the time was, with professional content, you're still going to get digital pennies. I hear that a lot, right? Digital pennies, because it's small dollars. But because we continued on this path of professional, curated content and never looked back, we actually not only passed Vogue and then iVillage, then NBC Online, then Disney Online. We actually passed Vogue's print business in revenue. Just think about that. This is no longer a small business, right? This is a very, very serious business. So I think the key to that is to really understand what's different about the internet. So the shock for me was pre-internet, all content has to be created professionally largely, and there's very few places you can distribute it. Like number of movies is limited, channels are limited, magazine rack space is limited. Both on the internet and then in YouTube, I saw a phenomena I had never seen before in any media, and I don't think this is understood well, which is it's not just that anyone can produce content, whether it's UGC, long tail, or professional. It's actually there's no control of distribution. So this makes it very hard if you're going to produce a great TV show or movie, spend $100 million or $400 million on it. You want to know that there's a likelihood that you can put it in all the spots and distribution to make that money up. On the internet, it's not only a hits business, the aggregate usage of hits is very low. So I'll give you one statistic that's shocking. Most people look at YouTube and think of, the dancing, cat and the crying, laughing baby, right? This still is an image in people's brands' minds when they think about YouTube. So I did a small exercise because I'm a very data-driven person, though I'm creative. I looked at last year television cable networks usage on TV and across American Idol, across Super Bowl, and it was fascinating. There's a very high accumulation of audience, broadcast, with time spent and dollars. Then I looked at YouTube in its entire more than decade. The top 100 videos of YouTube in total are less than 0.01% of YouTube. They're actually irrelevant. So you cannot take the cable and broadcast model into YouTube because build it and they will come, which is the model of the business of media, does not exist on digital. So my sense is, yes, you have to find this happy medium between being, if you want to have high CPMs, you have to have curated high quality content. There's no way around it. That is a model, right? And if you want to have mass ad network remnant business, then you can start from a low CPM and move it up. But most people have found that latter business is very hard to maintain. So that's my answer to that question.
I think with Maker, we've spent a lot of time sort of working on our distribution, or we consider ourselves a way to distribute because we're working with content creators that are on the high end of quality and have really consistent, engaged audiences. And so they consistently watch the content. So one of our biggest channels, Epic Rap Battles of History, will get 25 million views each video, and it's during an entire season. And so it's really the distribution of it, and we consider it premium content. Advertisers, I don't know that they see that yet, but we feel they should.
And I think that's where the answer lies, because what Maker managed to do is, or the likes of Maker, is help YouTube curate content, because it used to be quite messy until the makers of the world came and made sense of it, and that's what gave YouTube the push in the new direction.
By the way, I have a really good anecdote for this question, which is we sent a fashion blogger to Fashion Week. This was the first fashion blogger to go, who was seated next to Anna Wintour. This is Brian Boy, for a very interesting part of history. What happened was that moment, at least in our business, captured the change when the brand, it was Dolce & Gabbana actually, very, very smart CMO, who decided, I'm going to take the risk, right? After that, what happened was suddenly digital content that Glam was doing was considered premium. It was a moment in time. So I think in YouTube also, all this that you're doing, which is starting to move into curation and comfort, there will be a moment of time where it will be suddenly acceptable. And it's not just because it's professionally produced from known entities, it could be from unknown entities. And when that happens, money flows very quickly.
Yep. Okay, well, staying with content, here's another dimension to it, and keeping on the same tangent, which is really comparing between premium content versus the long tail content, as opposed to professional versus UGC. So a question for thinking about it from a broadcaster perspective versus maker perspective. Here's a really interesting stat. So it turns out that in broadcasting the London Olympic Games in the US, 185 hours broadcast in prime time on US broadcast, major networks, that generated 67% of revenues. 185 hours in prime time is 67% of revenues versus 5,300 hours on, via digital platform that generated 7% of revenues. So 185 hours, 67%, 5,300 hours, 7%. So the question is, does premium content have that much disproportionate value compared to sort of the long tail? Or is it mostly about still the difference between digital distribution versus free-to-air distribution? And the second, and adjacent to that is, will that change when VOD will come to the big screen via smart TV? If the question is about distribution, not content. Please, how do you respond to that discrepancy?
It's frustrating, because I feel like I think the content creators we work with and UGC, and I feel like they connect with an audience in such a powerful way that if advertisers could understand that, I think the content that was being made at that time, that it's very in the moment at the Olympics, talent making videos potentially, reacting to what's happening, I think, and engaging with their audience about it, I think would be the most powerful thing for an advertiser to have, as opposed to something that was maybe, cost a lot of money to make and considered very premium, but made months in advance and sort of anticipating what might happen at the Olympics. Being in the moment and having content created about what's happening and how they felt about it at the Olympics, I think that would have been incredibly powerful for any brand to have wanted to advertise on. So I imagine, or I hope, that will shift over time.
Christian, what do you think?
I think the answer is very easy for me. Linear TV will always be premium. It's a huge mass in a short time with a high production value. Just one number, only in Germany, we and RTL spent 2 billion for content. YouTube was spent 100 million in the US, and it was a big show. And out of the 100 channels they launched, they closed 70 already again. So I think it's clear, premium is about TV. In the digital world, it's different. Looking at all the VOD services we have, obviously there's a catch-up. If you miss a show, you will use it online. But also 50% of the VOD traffic is already long tail. Because there, everybody, if it's on demand, you can just follow your own wishes and then select your video. And it's on us to make everything available, be it professional TV shows or new web stars shows. So that's, I think, it's then open for the mass. And that was there in the past already. If you look at all the TV channels in Germany, I think you can reach 100 or 200 via satellite and cable. So the niche was already there, but it was packaged in some linear channels, which was very difficult to access. And now it's easy. Now you go to YouTube or other formats and find your content very easily. That's why it's used. And I think this long tail will really be hard for the small linear TV channels. They will get a hard time, but I think the big premium channels, they will stay and get stronger because it's the only way for advertisers to build reach, emotions, and brands fast.
But I think it has also to do with the user interface. It is still more complex to get a YouTube video on the big stream in the television than to watch linear TV. And I think that really the next generation of smart TVs will change that. And then you are more interested in fashion, and then you don't know, is that a linear channel running or is that something on YouTube? So that is more, I think we should change our mind here, because at the end the customer decides about the content. It might be premium content, but at the end, right? That is. Today, it is not really, the customer doesn't have the same opportunity in watching YouTube than in watching linear television. And I think that the next generation will change that.
I agree.
And then also the revenue will change a bit.
Right.
So.
Okay, well, I guess we ran out of time. Do we have time for one more question, or? Yeah, okay, so one quick one, which is an interesting, but I would just say on the long tail, I bet you that next Olympics, the gap will close and digital content will get more than 20%, we'll see, 20 to 25%, but let's wait and see. So last question, and an interesting one, which I guess maybe summarizes many of the discussion points we had today, is thinking about the difference between linear television and video on demand. Because we talked about how free-to-air television is coming down, but linear television is moving up. And against that, you have all the technological changes that are moving more controls towards the user. More mobility, multiple devices, more choice, time shifting, and more personalized experience with the personalized EPGs and so forth. So the question to Glam, to Samir, and I guess, thinking about it from a pay TV perspective, from a cable perspective, which will be the ultimate mode of consumption? And will there, in the future, be someone that actually tells us what to watch, when to watch, or is it going to be much more personalized, private experience? And we got to keep it short because we run out of time.
Very good question. Look, I think if you're in the cable business, you have access and power at a place that the user will need forever, in my opinion. I'm a very simple guy. This just gets more and more powerful. The content part is going to be an and, so it's not an or, but it's changing because the people who are best at content discovery today is not TV Guide, right? Because as we know what happened to the business, the person who's best at content discovery is Apple. The person who's next best at content discovery is Facebook. The person who's third best at content discovery is Twitter, and then maybe a Google, right? Google is very good for search, but they've not been traditionally good at content discovery, a big problem that plagues YouTube today, right? So somewhere along this, Apple's, if you look at the App Store, it's a very bad experience in content discovery for new apps. So it's not that they get it right all the time, but in music, they did. Right? So my feeling is the user part of it has to change by a platform company like Apple. That will allow companies like Glam, who've already convinced the brands to trust our curation process, to come with us to TV, right? When that happens, the consumer experience will change, and actually the demand for cable will go up. Because now you have a tremendous opportunity to go linear or not, and have discovery available, which is not just search, right? It's a real discovery. And I would say maybe today, social discovery is now bigger than Google discovery for many types of content already today. So imagine when you start taking social discovery to that, then it becomes a completely new model. So I'm a very strong believer in there has to be a model shift in the user side first for TV. With that will come a pretty large change of consumer behavior.
I strongly agree with you, and I mean that is what Liberty Global, we decided not to wait for Apple, right? Yeah. So I mean, Steve Jobs has said he cracked it, but it's not there. And also, I think Apple will get some challenges with the broadcasters like you. So therefore, we have developed a platform called Horizon. It has been launched in the Netherlands 3 months ago, and we generated 100,000 subscribers paying for that new platform. And that is really something we believe that we are entering the world you were describing before. And we are launching that here in Germany. And I'm absolutely convinced that if the customer gets the right user interface, then he will also change in his consumption, and he will get much more opportunities out. And then, of course, being the infrastructure provider, that is a lot of business for us as well.
So were you saying that you think cable, people will still pay for cable moving forward, as opposed to, you know, YouTube being able to be on the smart TVs or other,
Yeah.
that cable will still, people will still pay for cable?
What I'm simply suggesting is you always need a pipe. How that pipe is packaged will change. But the pipe is needed, and then players that do content packaging are needed, right? So the basic model of TV and cable stays intact, but the industry changes because you still need, you know, and one of the reasons you see Google going into the cable business for free is a very interesting move in the US, because that's a, you know, that's a complete out-of-the-box move. So, you know, my sense over here is that the opportunity now is a question I get asked a lot is, what's different about print and TV? Because there's obviously some difference, right? All of print, newspapers, magazines are having a hard time, except in new countries, new emerging markets. The difference is that digital is not an extension of print as a medium. This is a big problem, right? But digital is an extension for the TV cable model. It's a fundamental difference. So when you have an extension for a model, if you have a digital pipe, actually the current industry benefits, not a new industry. In print, that didn't happen. So there is a fundamental, so I believe actually it's an and world for consumers. So you're going to have linear and all VOD, but it's going to be actually very beneficial to both of us in the industry.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everyone on the panel. Thank you for your views. I think we have even more questions to think about now, not the answers. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and enjoy the rest of the day.